On today's show, we are breaking down the biggest risers and fallers from the USHL through the month of October, highlighted by James Scantlebury, a name that you certainly do not want to forget.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network in the world. I'm your host, Sebastian High, the USA scout over at Elite Prospects, and on today's episode, we'll be sticking with my region, the league that I've been watching now for 2 years running, and looking at the players that have been excelling, playing fantastic hockey, are seeing their stocks rise. And there's a whole bunch of USHL rookies among that group here this month. Players that won't even be eligible for this upcoming draft, but are more 2027 draft eligibles. There's a lot of talent coming through the league and players that are really establishing themselves as not just night in, night out reliable players in this league, but some of the more dynamic and creative players in the whole circuit. So we'll be talking about some of those guys who've been really skyrocketing and making some really big steps towards high-end draft selections in the coming year or two, as well as some players that have either been steady in their development and a team that has been a very reliable faller so far this season, have been struggling a lot. We are, of course, talking about the U.S. National Team Development Program, who have been off to a very rough start to the beginnings of the 2025-26 season. But we'll be talking about all of this here on today's show. So strap yourselves in, make yourselves comfortable, grab something to drink, and we'll dive straight into this. But before that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So let's kick things off with the headliner here on today's show, the player who is going to be in the thumbnail, in the title, and that is James Scantlebury of the Chicago Steel, a rookie, an undersized forward, 5'9", 165 pounds. You might be questioning, like, why is this player so special? And, well, he does about everything on the ice for the Chicago Steel. He's had a little bit of a dry spell in terms of production so far in November, but his October was absolutely electric. And this is a guy who does a whole lot of things well. If you want to have a more in-depth look at all of these players, I'm going to link down below the article that this podcast is kind of built off of that I posted on Elite Prospects just last week. So go and check that out. But with James Scantlebury, you have a combination of high-end dynamic skill, breakneck speed, unrelenting intensity, and refined two-way details, playing center as a 16-year-old in the top six capacity as a rookie in this league. A lot of things have been really impressive with how he's been performing, but also just the type of player that he is. And this isn't like a shock to us that he's playing so well already at this young of an age. He was a player that we hyped up massively for the summer QMJHL draft. My colleague and friend Hattie Kalikesh was a massive fan of him and had him ranked second overall among QMJHL draft prospects. But instead of going to the Quebec Remparts, which is a very strong program in the Quebec Maritime Junior Hockey League, he instead opted to honor his prior commitment to the Chicago Steel and develop under Scott Gomez and the new development staff and coaching staff there with the Steel. And the decision has already been paying off for both sides. He's been electric in every single puck touch. His puck battles are really exciting to watch. And he's just been a resounding success so far this season, authoring some of the most dynamic and deft sequences executed by any player in the entire league. He's a really fearless forechecker, constantly playing at breakneck pace, very intense in puck battles, gets underneath opponents. He works leverage really well. And overall, this guy's a menace on the forecheck, on the back check, while bringing so much skill, handling ability, really dynamic feet to the equation. And the pace at which he thinks the game is really a special quality. I think that will help him translate up the levels, even if he doesn't add on that much size or weight here in the coming year or two. James Scantlebury has every tool in the book, apart from size, that will make him really high end, really, at every single level as he progresses. I see him as a high end prospect for the 2027 draft, and he plays way bigger than he is. He has so many habits and details that compensate for not having that like 6 foot plus size at his disposal. And overall, I think that combination of elite IQ, elite puck skills, elite skating, and elite motor is going to bring him so far. And overall, he's a player that I expect great things from. And just to quote a scouting report that I wrote on Scantlebury against the Madison Capitals on the 18th of October, I said, the most dynamic and dominant performance I've scouted from any player in this young 25-26 USHL season. James Scantlebury created advantages all over the ice. Just nonstop intensity paired with lightning quick processing, free flow creativity, and mature off-puck details. Head on a swivel, he seemingly didn't miss a defensive read all night. This kid is a special talent. And yeah, that's really what he is. He's a special talent and a lot to look forward to with this player as he continues his development in a pretty high-profile role in a mostly top 6 capacity there with the Steel so far this season. And he's going to be a potential guy for like MVP awards in the 26-27 season when he is a draft eligible. And very excited to keep watching this player play because he's beyond entertaining every single shift, but he also plays with the grit, the intelligence, the risk assessment that makes coaches want to put him on the ice more often than not. But moving on, we have another dynamic scorer here from the USHL, and this time it's a drafted player, and that's Brent Solomon of the Sioux Falls Stampede, a Detroit Red Wings prospect. He was a selection just in the fourth round this past summer, and he only played 8 USHL games last season, mostly playing in the high school circuit with Champlain Park High, but he's been really lighting it up here so far this season. He's all the way up now to 10 goals and 10 assists for 20 points in just 16 games. And the USHL hasn't been the league for the highest scoring players so far this season, and that has him all the way up at 5th in league scoring. He's within striking distance of 2nd at the very least, where Cooper Simpson has 22 points in 17 games. But with Brent Solomon, what he brings to the ice is really high-end goal-scoring ability. His shot is an absolute rocket. There's so much power, very deadly release, and that production is just coming as a result of that high-end tool. And USHL netminders have just found that release nightmarish so far this season, and defenders have been giving him too much space and time so far on the puck to let him unleash that release. But overall, he's at his best when he's catching pucks in the mid to high slot with a couple feet to spare, and he's just money as a shooter in those areas of the ice. And when he does have the time to look up and pick a spot, he can really pick those corners, and that's going to be something that USHL defenses are going to have to adjust to here this season, is containing him more, being more aggressive, marking him more tightly, because with this time and space, he's just so lethal. But when things get a little bit more constrained and a bit more tight, he can struggle a little bit more. So he's been a massive riser here early on the season, but that says almost as much about the defenses he's facing as it does about his actual toolkit. He's going to have to learn to adapt a little bit more, especially when he makes the jump to the NCAA, likely next season there with the University of Wisconsin. But there's a lot to like here beyond just the shot. He's a player that has been able to flash some playmaking intelligence, some deception of selling the shot in order to open up passing lanes. But his overall quickness and motor do hold him back a little bit at this point in time, especially in terms of rush creation. He's at his best finding little pockets of space off the cycle. But he's a really high-end offensive thinker. He finds those little soft pockets of space. And with that increasing dual threat that he has with the the puck on his stick, he's certainly going to be challenging for the scoring title here this season in the U.S. Hockey League. And I think that Detroit Red Wings fans should be very happy with the progression he's been showing here this season. To come out of the gate with such just lethal goal scoring is not the expectation for players who make the jump almost directly from high school to the USHL. Even as D+1 talents, it's been really smooth sailing so far for Brent Solomon, even if there definitely is still a road to go before he's going to be able to do this against college opposition. But lucky for him, he's got a full year ahead of him to build those habits. But that wraps things up here for us in the second segment. In the next one, we'll be talking about a defenseman scoring at almost 2 points a game so far this season. It's a D-1, as well as another D-1 who's one of the most intelligent playmakers in the 2027 draft class. But before we do that, we got a quick message here from our sponsors at Locked On NHL Prospects. You just realized that your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs get your post to the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates right now. I've been in that spot before where you need the right hire like yesterday. The pressure's on, and every single day without the right person is a massive setback. That's why Indeed sponsored jobs are so handy. They make sure that your post is seen by the right candidates right now. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. All right, let's keep this show rolling here in the second segment as we are breaking down the biggest risers here to finish off in the USHL. And we've got a pair of players that I've really enjoyed watching here so far this season. And we'll start with Jake Prunty of the Sioux Falls Stampede in the USHL, an undersized but dynamic offensive defenseman who's only played 7 games so far this season, being called up from AAA hockey in New Jersey. And he has 11 assists in just 7 games. That is absurd. In terms of point per game scoring league-wide, he sits in first, just barely edging out second, who's the leader in points in the league, Alex Pelletier. But his 11 assists are also already sitting at a tied second. And these are players that have played twice as much so far as he has this season in terms of games started. And Jake Prunty is a 16-year-old right shot defenseman, 5'10", 154 pounds, but he is a really exciting talent, very aggressive in his offensive activations, very deceptive with the way that he moves his feet. And he has certainly some qualities of like the Hudson brothers in the way he wants to manage the puck in the offensive zone. And that has made him just really, really fun to watch so far in the USHL. And overall is in the offensive zone with quick twitch wrists and dancing up the right boards to kind of find an open playmaking options. He's able to drag defenders out of position, hit his teammates right in the center of the slot, and just keeps his head and eyes moving, keeps defenders guessing, and it has a lot of these tools that we've seen among undersized offensive defensemen who have found success in recent years in the NCAA and eventually in the National Hockey League as well. So he's definitely a player who's coming onto our radar now as a really exciting talent who has a lot of these tools that we look for, but definitely still some room to grow on the defensive side of things. He can be out-muscled, he can be a little bit slow in his reads, but he's still just adapting to the pace of play that he has to defend in the U.S. Hockey League so far this season. But overall, with his escapability, his high-end vision, his passing precision, there's so much to like here that have already been creating highlight reel sequences in the USHL in his first games at this level. And he's just constantly creating really, really nice sequences for his teammates. Has been a massive offensive facilitator and creator from the blue line. And yeah, the defensive game hasn't been sparkling so far, and he's been a bit passive while defending the rush and a bit slow to react to loose pucks around the crease. But those habits will have to grow, most certainly, in order to keep his kind of position as a high-end prospect moving forward. But he's showing a level of offensive tools from the blue line that we don't see more than 1, 2, or 3 players per draft class possessing. So a lot of things to really love here so far with Jake Prunty, but still a clear ways to go in order to establish himself as a true high-end draft prospect there in 2027. And we move on to a play that's gotten a bit more hype leading up to his draft year campaign as a D-1. That's Michael Tang, a player who was kind of just left out to dry and not accepted as part of the NTDP, which I think they are already regretting as a mistake here so far this campaign, because he's been off to a great start. He has 8 points in 12 games so far this season. Really deceptive, intelligent, patient as a playmaker in the offensive zone. He's come to life, especially on the power play, which is to be expected for a D-1 player, really finding his groove offensively in a new league against higher end competition. But he really did have a big impact for the Madison Capitals here so far this season. He's so engaged. He's hardworking. He's a meticulously intelligent winger, constantly scanning the ice and really being patient and deliberate with his puck touches. And these are all qualities that drove play for his line at even strength, night in, night out through the entirety of October. And on the power play, it's his confidence and dynamic playmaking that really took over to quarterback some of Madison's most dominant offensive sequences. And he's a player that I think, with his reading of the play, his timing of involvement, and decisive skill when the puck is on his stick, these are all things that already great as excellent among USHL players at this point, and they're only getting better by the week. With a bit more added weight, I think that he could also really establish himself as a potential power forward in this league. He has the desire to drive the middle of the ice, lower the shoulder, but just the strength just isn't quite there just yet to fully embrace that style at this level of play. He's 6 feet tall, but just 165 pounds. I mean, goes to show he's a 16-year-old. That's a shocker, right? He still has to build out his frame. That's the case for almost every player in his age group in this league. But still, I think that there's so much to swing on with this talent that he's definitely en route to being a potential top 50, top 32 selection in the 2027 NHL draft. Of course, things can change a lot when you're making takes this early in the draft cycle. I mean, still a year and a half, more than that, out from him walking up on stage and hearing his name called on draft day. But Michael Tang is a player to keep your eye on, to keep in the back of your mind as a guy that's going to make an impact as he drives up the ranks here, and especially in terms of that intelligence. Like, he thinks the game at such a high-end level. His ability to make reads faster than anyone around him, whether they be his teammates or his opponents, I think that bodes very, very well for his eventual projection. And with that ceaseless intensity, but also ability to slow play down when he has space to play with, I think, he's got a lot of qualities that you look for in a dynamic player who can create through his intelligence and intensity, and maybe even in a power style of game at the next level. But that wraps things up here for the second segment. In the final one, we're going to talk about Blake Zielinski and his steady stock, as well as the USNTDP, who have been notable fallers here so far this season, with some pretty big struggles through October, losing all but one game, and the U18 team lost every single one. But before we dive into that, we've got a quick message here from our sponsors at Locked On NHL Prospects. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks that you can swing on early. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at an even bigger payout. I love those parlays. They allow me to combine multiple swings from multiple different teams in the same game and take really big swings on the players that I believe will really just blow up on a given night, and they allow me to take home even bigger winnings. It keeps every single game exciting, especially when your favorite team is making that late game push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All righty, let's wrap up the show here in the final segment, talking about the USHL risers and fallers. And we'll kick things off with Blake Zielinski of the Des Moines Buccaneers, a player who's eligible for this year's draft class for once, 2026 draft eligible, and one of the most individually gifted and skilled players in the entire league. Blake Zielinski brings so much to the equation. He's got an absolute howitzer of a shot as a 6 foot, 185-pound right shot winger. He can play at center sometimes as well, but I think his style is a bit more suited for the wing, especially as he goes up the ranks. But he's only logged 2 goals so far this season, which has been a shock because his shot really is the biggest tool he has at his disposal, as he showed at the Lincoln Gretzky tournament over the summer, where he scored 4 goals and 9 points in 5 games in a great 1-2 punch with Jack Hextall of the Youngstown Phantoms. But Zielinski has some really exciting handling ability, very dynamic when he gets his feet moving. He definitely is at his best when his motor is running. There's been a couple games I've watched so far this season where he's a bit less involved and his overall efficacy drops up quite a bit in those contexts. But still, when he's moving, and he is moving most games, like he is a pretty high motor player generally, especially in the neutral and offensive zones. This guy is so difficult to contain, and that shot, that handling skill, the emerging playmaking he's been showing this season have really been exciting to watch and have been at the core of some of the most dynamic sequences that Des Moines has created so far this season. But that goal scoring is going to have to catch up a little bit because the shot is just so good. The handling to set up the shot is really, really wonderful to watch as well. But the shots just haven't been going in. They haven't been finding the back of the net here so far this season. And that's one of the reasons that he's a kind of steady player rather than a stock riser for us so far this season. He's kind of clicking where we expected him to. He's just under a point a game so far this campaign with 12 points in 16 games. But overall, he's a player that I still see as a really interesting second-round candidate. He's got the tools to build around. Reminds me a little bit of Benjamin Keevan from last season, who also played with Des Moines in the USHL. And overall, when he's at his best, Zielinski can just dance around defenders and smoothly drag pucks around outstretched sticks, cutting inside, then outside again before unleashing a lethal snapshot. Like, there are some really exciting sequences that he's able to string together, but he's going to have to be a bit more consistent in his own end, and especially being a high motor player in his own end, being disruptive, defensively engaged, and also to diversify his offensive ability a bit more with more playmaking scans. He still is a player who looks for the shot first and foremost, but changing that a bit, becoming a bit more adaptable on puck, would go a really long way to open up those very shooting lanes he's constantly searching for. So Zielinski's a very exciting player, a very dynamic player, but we're still kind of waiting to see him transcend into USHL dominance and really being able to take over shifts, which we haven't fully seen so far this season, which is why he is a steady stock player rather than a stock riser. But to wrap up the show, we've got the only stock fallers of the month, and it's the NTDP. It's been a rough go for the program here as of late. And to call the month of October a bleak one for the program would be a massive understatement. Barring a single gutsy win by the U17s against the Muskegon Lumberjacks of all teams on October 10th, the program lost every single one of its games, both in the USHL and against college opposition in friendlies. And the U18 team lost every single one of their 8 games in that month. And it's been a rough go overall. It's been a really tough watch for a lot of these games, a lot of blowouts, especially against college opposition for the U18 team, but definitely still some storylines to be excited about. Victor Plant, the younger brother of both Zam and Max, who have been lighting it up. They're topping the charts as the top and second top scorers in the NCAA so far this season. And Victor Plant with the NTDP U18s has also been off to a good start, playing some good hockey right now at the U18 Five Nations. And he had a 2-assist night against Sweden, 1-goal, 3-point night against Czechia, and a massive 10-2 victory. But yeah, it's been a tough go much of the season for the NTDP, and a lot of this has gone down to a lack of structure defensively. It's been a lot of chaos where players don't know where their teammates are supposed to be, where they can find them. They're constantly scanning around like headless chickens, trying to find each other on the ice, and that chemistry, the understanding of each other's patterns and how they fit into the team system has been a work in progress, to put it lightly, so far this season. And they've just been viewed as an easy win in the column for every single opponent they've faced so far this season. And it's not to say that there isn't a lot of individual talent on this team, but we're still going to see there's a single first rounder from the NTDP again this season for a second straight year. I mean, you have Luke Scherer, who has the profile of a first round defenseman. He's big, he moves well, he's violent, he's really built out physically. He's at his best when he activates offensively and tries to make things happen at like in all 200 feet of the ice. He can be a real good two-way guy, but he's been left out to dry often. He's been getting small minutes for some stretches of this season, playing like 12 or 13 minutes a night for decent stretches through October. And overall, it's been a tough go for the NTDP. But I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. If you've watched the NTDP play so far this season, what do you think is at the core of their struggles so far? Like, to me, a lot of that is coming down from the coaching as well, but obviously the talent isn't the same that it used to be. Like that 2019 group with like Cole Caulfield and Trevor Zegras and everyone else that was in there. I mean, that was Jack Hughes's year as well, or even 2022, where you had guys like Lane Hudson and Cutter Gauthier, and Will Smith was in there. Like, a lot of players have been coming out of the NTDP in recent years, but last year's group and this year's group have been a distinct fall off from that level of talent. There's been no superstar talent in these classes. We're hoping that next year is a change of pace. Braden Willis looks very good as a top 10 candidate in that draft class, but overall the NTDP is struggling to kind of attract talent in the same way that they used to, and we're seeing the results of that. And paired with a coaching staff that is trying the same thing night in, night out, seemingly, as they were last season, and it's been a struggle fest this entire time. Tough to hope for different results when the kind of the input and the strategies remain unchanged. And I think also the team building here, there's been a lot of skilled players that they've been leaving off of their team in the selection processes these last couple seasons. Guys like Riker Lee, for instance, from last year's draft, and Michael Tang, who could have been added in this offseason for the U17 program. A lot of skill and intelligence and game-breaking ability being left on the table for a team that is made up of almost exclusively small dynamic guys and big heavy hitting guys and nothing in between. In terms of size, you have like 6'3" and 5'8", and that's it. You have like very few players that are kind of in the mix between those. And I think that kind of limiting themselves to the types of players that they want to add to the team, like 6-foot guys who don't skate at an elite level, have just not been included in these lineups. And I think that that's something that hurts a lot. So the NTDP continues to fall here, but they've got the talent to catch themselves. Guys like Casey Mutrin and Mikey Burchild in that U18 team have the skill, have the game-breaking abilities to really make this team their own, but we haven't seen that so far this season. And it may be on the shoulders of Sammy Nelson, who's a 2027 eligible, but playing with the U18 team, to really like be the glue of this lineup, to be like the two-way reliable guy who is able to pop up with big goals when it counts, but also shut things down defensively when it matters most. But to lean on a 16-year-old just this much, I think, is a risk in and of itself. So a lot of question marks surrounding the NTDP so far this season, and they're clearly a faller here for the month of October. But that wraps things up here for our show here today. Thank you so much for listening. As always, if you're watching on YouTube, please do leave those comments down below on some of your impressions of these players and of the NTDP in specific. And if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, please do make sure to make us your first listen of the day. It's always greatly appreciated. Our everydayers are the glue that hold this podcast together. So thank you so much to you. And for your second listen of the day, you can head on over to Locked On Fantasy Hockey, where Flip and Steel break down everything you need to know to build yourself a competitive and sustainable fantasy roster. But that is it here for us today. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I'm your host, Sebastian Hine, and look forward to catching you listening again very, very soon.